On a winter afternoon, the streets of a bustling American city were covered with a thick layer of snow that reflected the scarce rays of the late afternoon sun. Chloe, with her flowing blonde hair and deep blue eyes, wore a thin, faded coat that showed signs of many winters past. At just 12 years old, she walked cautiously to avoid slipping, her worn boots barely insulating her feet from the freezing cold that was settling in. The day had been long and exhausting for Chloe. After the tragic death of her parents in a car accident, she had been left in the care of Marlene, a distant friend of her mother. Marlene, however, cared little for Chloe. The house was always a mess, with dirty dishes and clothes strewn about, and Marlene often left Chloe alone, unconcerned whether she had eaten or was warm enough to withstand the harsh winter. Near a corner of the city park, Chloe often sat and watched the people passing by, imagining their lives and stories. It was her way of escaping the harsh reality she faced. That day, as she watched, an elderly woman approached her. Her name was Eleanor, and she had a kind look that immediately made Chloe feel a bit safer. Noticing the poor state of Chloe's clothes, Eleanor offered her a warmer coat she had in her bag. "You seem to need this more than I do," said Eleanor, extending the coat to Chloe. Surprised and hesitant, Chloe accepted the coat, thanking her timidly. "Thank you, ma'am. I really needed something warmer." Eleanor smiled, feeling an instant connection with the young girl. "What's your name, dear?" "Chloe," she replied, adjusting the coat around her body. "Chloe, I come to this park every day to feed the birds. If you want, you can join me tomorrow. I'll bring some hot chocolate for us," Eleanor offered, hopeful. Eleanor's invitation was a ray of light in the darkness Chloe had been facing. She agreed, eager to meet this new friend again, who, unlike Marlene, showed genuine concern for her. For the first time in a long time, Chloe felt that perhaps she wasn't as alone as she thought. The next day, wrapped in a thin blanket, she was lying under the awning of an electronics store, whose lights were still off at this early hour. The sky was beginning to lighten, tinted with a frosty blue that promised another rigorous winter day. Her hands trembled slightly, not just from the cold, but also from the uncertainty of what the day would bring. Despite the discomfort, a spark of hope shone in her blue eyes as she watched the hurried people passing by, wrapped in their heavy coats. "Today, I'm going to do something different," Chloe thought. "Something has to change." She felt her determination growing, fueled by the desire to change her luck. Her stomach ached with hunger, and she knew she needed to find something to eat before she could do anything else. With a deep sigh, Chloe stood up, wrapped the worn blanket around her, and began to walk through the still, quiet streets of the city, her step cautious but determined. As the streets began to fill with life, Chloe passed by shop windows and cafes that were starting to open. It was then that the aroma of hot food cut through the cold air and captured her attention. The scent came from a luxurious restaurant, whose illuminated windows offered a glimpse of a world very different from hers. Hesitantly, she stopped in front of the restaurant, her heart beating faster at the thought of entering. "They even throw food away at the end of the day," she reminded herself, recalling a conversation overheard in passing. Swallowing her pride and driven by necessity, Chloe pushed the door and entered. Inside the restaurant, Chloe felt an increasing weight of discomfort. She was visibly different from the regular customers, with her worn clothing and disheveled hair. The people around her were dressed elegantly and chatted animatedly, enjoying their meals without a care. As she moved timidly through the space, Chloe noticed the looks directed at her, laden with disdain and surprise. Murmurs began to spread as she approached the counter, the tones of conversation lowering, replaced by whispers and furtive glances. The air was heavy with unspoken judgments, and Chloe felt a pressure in her chest, her breathing quickening with anxiety. She reached the counter, her hands trembling slightly. With a voice that barely hid her nervousness, she spoke to the attendant, a young man with a kinder demeanor. "Please, I'm very hungry. Do you have any leftovers I could eat? It doesn't matter what it is." Before the attendant could respond, a strong voice interrupted any chance of discretion. "What's going on here?" The voice belonged to the restaurant manager, a middle-aged woman with a stern expression and a posture that exuded authority. Her hair was tightly pulled back, and her gray eyes fixed on Chloe with a piercing gaze. The attendant began to stutter an explanation, but was cut off by the manager. "We don't feed vagrants here. This is a restaurant, not a soup kitchen." Her voice was loud enough for everyone in the restaurant to hear, and a new wave of murmurs spread. Chloe stepped back, her cheeks flushing with humiliation as the eyes of everyone in the restaurant seemed to be fixed on her. The manager advanced, her words as cutting as the cold winter wind outside. "You need to leave now. We don't want any trouble here." The manager's words hit Chloe like a punch in the stomach, and for a moment, she was completely paralyzed, fear and shame mixing into an overwhelming emotion. But then, something inside her ignited, a spark of indignation. With her head held high, she responded with a firmness that surprised even herself. "I was just asking for some food. I'm not causing any trouble." The manager hesitated for a moment, surprised by Chloe's response, but quickly regained her rigid posture. "It doesn't matter. You have to leave now," she insisted, pointing to the door. Chloe, feeling the eyes of everyone still on her, took a step back and then turned to leave the restaurant. Tears began to form in her eyes, but she held them back until she was outside again, where the morning cold seemed a relief compared to the stifling heat of the judgmental gazes. She knew that moment would be another scar in her memory, but also a reminder that she needed to find strength, even in the harshest rejections. Chloe, with tears threatening to overflow, had barely crossed the threshold of the restaurant when she felt a gentle hand touch her shoulder. She turned around, surprised and apprehensive, to find a refined-looking woman gazing at her with concern. The woman, dressed in an elegant cashmere coat and a silk scarf, had a warm smile and eyes that expressed genuine kindness. "My dear, please don't leave like this," the woman said in a soft voice that immediately made Chloe feel a bit calmer. "My name is Amelia. I saw what happened, and honestly, it's not right." Chloe, still trembling slightly, managed to stammer a response. I just wanted some food. I didn't want to cause any trouble." Mrs. Amelia touched Chloe's arm, guiding her back into the restaurant. "You didn't cause any trouble. Come on, let's sit down and sort this out." Returning inside, Mrs. Amelia not only ignored the curious looks from other customers, but also cast a firm glance at the manager, who watched the scene with a look of disapproval. Mrs. Amelia was not intimidated. Her posture conveyed authority and confidence. "Bring us 2 coffees and the breakfast menu, please," Amelia told the attendant, who quickly nodded and moved away, casting a nervous glance at the manager. As they sat down, Amelia began to talk to Chloe, trying to comfort her. "I've been coming here for years, and I've never liked the way some people are treated here. Everyone deserves respect and dignified treatment, no matter their situation." Chloe looked at Amelia, feeling a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice still shaky. Amelia smiled, running her hand through Chloe's hair in a motherly way. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because maybe one day, if you're in a position to help someone, you will do the same." The attendant returned with the coffees and the menu. Amelia ordered the best breakfast they offered, and then turned to Chloe. "Now, tell me a little about yourself, Chloe. What brought you here today?" As Chloe shared her story, Amelia listened attentively, occasionally signaling the attendant to bring something more to the table. The meal that arrived was plentiful and delicious, and for the first time in a long time, Chloe felt safe and cared for. After breakfast, life on the streets had taught her to be cautious, but looking at Amelia, something told her that she could trust this woman. I don't want to be a bother," Chloe murmured, looking down. "You're not bothering, dear. Consider this help that I am more than happy to offer," Amelia responded, gently lifting Chloe's chin so their eyes met. "You deserve a chance for a fresh start." Convinced by the sincerity in Amelia's eyes, Chloe agreed to go with her. Amelia's house was cozy and well-kept, with comfortable furniture and many plants that brought life to the environment. Amelia showed Chloe the guest room, a small but cozy space with a soft bed and a window overlooking a flower-filled garden. While Amelia fetched some clothes for Chloe, the girl felt a mix of relief and strangeness. She walked to the window, looking at the garden outside, and thought about how, just a few hours earlier, she felt so lost and alone. Now there was a glimmer of hope growing inside her. Amelia returned with a small pile of clothes. "Here are some things that I think might fit you. Feel free to use what you want and put the rest in the closet," she said, placing the clothes on the bed. In the following days, Chloe began to adjust to her new reality and lived together with Amelia. At night, lying in the comfortable bed of the guest room, Chloe reflected on the incredible change in her life. She felt grateful for Amelia and all the generous people she had met. Slowly, but surely, the mistrust she felt was being replaced by gratitude and a new sense of hope. Chloe knew she still had a long way to go, but for the first time, she was eager to see what the future held for her. As Chloe adjusted to her new life, she began to learn more about Amelia, her new guardian, and, as she would soon discover, much more. During long evening conversations, Amelia shared pieces of her own life story, revealing that she too had faced times of helplessness and difficulty in her youth. "I know what it's like to feel lost and alone in the world," Amelia confessed one of those nights as they both sipped tea in the kitchen. "Maybe that's why I felt such a strong connection with you from the start." Chloe listened attentively, finding comfort and inspiration in Amelia's resilience. Seeing a reflection of her own experiences in Amelia's, Chloe felt increasingly connected to her, not just as a benefactor, but as family. Inspired by Chloe's determination and moved by a deep sense of connection, Amelia made the decision to make the arrangement official. "Chloe, I'd like to be more than just your guardian. I'd like to be your family, if you'll allow me," Amelia proposed one day, with adoption papers in hand. Chloe, moved and speechless, simply nodded with tears in her eyes, hugging Amelia with all the love she felt. With the support of her new mother, Chloe began to explore the world with new eyes. She resumed her studies, attending the local school where, for the first time, she made true friends and participated in extracurricular activities. Feeling safe and valued, she allowed herself to dream about the future, something that seemed so distant before. The transformation was remarkable. Chloe, who once walked with hesitation, now moved with confidence. Her grades improved, her circle of friends grew, and she even began to volunteer, helping others as she had been helped. Years later, Chloe, now a confident and successful young adult, decided to visit the restaurant that had marked a turning point in her life. This time, her entry was met with smiles and respectful greetings, a drastic change from the cold reception years ago. The manager, still the same, recognized her immediately and, in a gesture of humility, approached to apologize for the past. Chloe accepted the apologies with a gentle smile and a grace that only comes with maturity and forgiveness. "We all grow," she simply said, gratitude for her journey shining in her eyes. Chloe's journey, marked by losses and reunions, now made profound sense. She had not only found a home and a family, but had also reconnected ties that fate had, surprisingly, prepared for her.